Hey everyone, if you follow marine conservation at all, you probably know the global decline of coral reefs is frankly a massive ecological crisis. But look, today we're skipping the doom and gloom. Instead, we're zeroing in on a really targeted, surprisingly practical solution. We're going to explore exactly how locally grown corals are stepping up to support reef recovery and why the geographical origin of a coral might just be the absolute secret to its survival. So let's dive right into this explainer.
So how do we actually rebuild a reef? I mean, it sounds monumental, right? We all know what's at stake here. We're talking biodiversity, crucial coastal defenses, local economies. But when a reef degrades, you can't exactly put it back together like a giant puzzle. It's definitely not just about dropping concrete blocks into the water and hoping for the best. The real, practical answer actually lies in how we fundamentally rethink the farming of the corals themselves.
To get there, we really need to reframe our entire definition of coral restoration. We aren't just tossing random coral fragments out into the ocean anymore. The new frontier? It's hyper-local farming. This means growing corals just a stone's throw from where they'll eventually be replanted, using parent colonies native to that exact spot. And why is that hyper-local focus so vital? Well, because a coral's survival just isn't generic. It relies heavily on hyper-specific conditions. We're talking about exact water temperatures, localized chemistry, the specific light conditions, and even the precise timing of their spawning. If you miss the mark on any of those local factors, the corals simply won't survive.
Now, historically, restoration teams often imported corals from distant locations. And on the surface, that seemed logical, right? Just bring in healthy coral from somewhere else. But when you dive into the microbiology, the script flips entirely. Local strains possess a massive home field advantage. They already carry the exact genetic diversity and acclimatization needed to thrive right there in their specific backyard. When restoration teams work with these localized strains rather than distant imports, they're giving the reef a tremendous head start on long-term survival. Think about the immense environmental stress a coral faces on any given week. You've got sudden heat waves, drastic salinity swings after a heavy rain, murky water quality. A hyperlocal coral inherently knows how to survive these specific, localized events because, well, it evolved in them. Thanks to this built-in biological resilience, locally grown corals literally smash post-planting survival records and show significantly more stable growth compared to their foreign transplant counterparts. It's kind of like nature's ultimate cheat code.
Zooming out to the macro level for a second, there's another absolutely crucial benefit here, and that's protecting the wild reefs we actually still have left. Think about the logistics. If we endlessly harvest fragments from wild, healthy reefs to fix broken ones, we risk destroying the very ecosystems we're trying so hard to save. By growing the corals we need in a controlled, local nursery environment, we completely change the supply chain of reef restoration. These nurseries basically act as a massive, vital buffer.
And that creates an entirely sustainable loop. First, it starts with really careful, minimal sourcing. Teams take just what they need to start the farm, focusing purely on propagation needs. From there, those parent colonies produce thousands of juvenile corals within a safe, controlled environment. Finally, those juveniles are outplanted, totally shifting the demand away from direct wild removal. This continuous process allows restoration programs to generate the massive scale of coral needed without actively depleting the existing healthy reefs.
Because reef restoration is never a one-size-fits-all job, local farming gives managers the ultimate customized toolkit. What works on a shallow sandy flat absolutely won't work on a deep, turbulent drop-off. Nurseries allow teams to perfectly align their strategy. They can customize the exact coral species mixes for the microenvironment, tweak the planting densities, and even engineer specific habitat complexities to support the unique fish and marine life that rely on that exact reef structure.
All right, up until now, we've focused pretty heavily on the biology and ecology of the corals themselves. But the real game changer here is the human element, community stewardship and capacity building. Local coral farming isn't just about empowering the marine life. It fundamentally empowers the residents living right there on the shoreline. When you centralize the nursery and the recovery efforts within the community itself, you completely shift the dynamic from outside scientists fixing a problem to local communities fiercely managing their own natural resources.
By keeping nurseries local, we aren't just importing a temporary fix. We're actively training residents, local fishers, and conservation partners to maintain these systems. It builds incredible community-led governance. It's actually very akin to agriculture. Teaching a community to farm coral creates a permanent pipeline of local expertise, and this ensures that the capability to restore the reef persists long after a single, short-term external funding cycle dries up. The whole process becomes embedded directly into the fabric of the community.
You know, it's notoriously hard to rally a community around an abstract massive goal like improving global ocean health. But a local nursery? That provides tangible, undeniable metrics. Instead of abstract hope, communities get measurable indicators. They can track exact survival rates and physically measure the canopy growth of the corals they planted with their own hands. It takes an abstract ecological crisis and turns it into a visible, highly localized success story, allowing everyone involved to see the immediate real-world results of their hard work.
Now, we do have to be realistic here. As powerful as this is, locally grown corals aren't a magic wand. While they play a deeply critical role in recovery strategies, they simply cannot substitute the fight against the root causes of reef decline. We still absolutely must tackle things like water pollution, destructive fishing practices, and harmful coastal overdevelopment. Local farming is a highly targeted, practical strategy for sure, but it only really thrives when it's backed by broader environmental action and protection.
So, what's the core philosophy we've uncovered today? Well, local coral farming brilliantly merges pure science with human capacity building. It transforms recovery from a temporary external intervention into a permanent place-based commitment. When restoration teams work directly within their own geographic context, literally everything improves, from the initial nursery production to the field outplanting, right down to the ongoing, long-term site management by the very people who call that coastline home.
And that brings up a pretty fascinating question for all of us to consider. How does place-based stewardship apply to your own local environment? Think about it. Even if you live thousands of miles from the nearest coral reef, this hyperlocal, community-first blueprint of using native strains, building community knowledge, and tracking local progress, all of that can be applied to forests, wetlands, and even urban parks alike. How can you step up and apply this exact mindset to the ecosystems in your own backyard? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the amazing world around you.